Hey, what is up, guys? This is Zach, and I am here with
Me,
it's
Michael.
me. It's Michael. It's my brother who lives in China. His name is
Yep.
Michael Harris. You notice the same last name because we are related, and we're born from the same womb. We were
Actually,
not in it at the same time, but a few years apart. It's a creepy way
yeah.
of saying things. But we are doing today's segment is called. Actually, I didn't name today's segment. Do you have a name, Michael?
Um, top five ooparts and cryptids from China, maybe.
Well, okay, that's the episode name. Yeah. So the episode name
Oh, the
is Top Five
segment name.
Ooparts and Cryptids. So here's the thing. An oopart is an out of place artifact, is correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically any kind of like, whoa, a computer from ancient Egypt or something like that. And cryptids are yetis and Loch Ness monsters and just weird beasties and stuff. So this the segment we'll figure out a name, but like basically it'll be I mean, I figure you and me can do a couple different segments over the course of time, but like for now, uh, I know you love cryptozoology and just the weird stuff, so I figured we'd do a segment maybe once a month on just different cryptids. We could call it Weird Michael, but that's kind of
Yeah.
insulting.
You could totally call it something like Mysteries with Michael or something like that.
Mysteries of the Michael. Myst- anyway, we will
Anyway,
probably have a name for it by the time I post this, or maybe not. Anyway, so you went ahead and did top five of China. So what is number five?
so the number five one is the most likely to be real. So of
Oh,
course
really?
it's
Cool. Oh, so
one of the least. So because who wants real stuff?
boring.
Uh, first one or the first or the fifth, whatever that is.
Part five.
Uh,
Number five.
number five, the Wuga. Number five is the Fujian blue tiger.
The Fujian blue tiger. Okay. So is it just literally a blue tiger that lives in Fujian?
Pretty much.
Okay, next four.
No, just kidding. Yeah. So in the province of Fujian, for pretty much long, long time, there's
Uh,
been sightings of a tiger that has like this grayish blue coloring. I
like
my
uh,
English.
like a polar bear kind of grayish blue.
Uh,
Like I mean, not that polar bears are grayish blue, but like a or like an Arctic hare or something.
no, more like those Russian blue cats that are like kind of slate gray, but in the light, when the light reflects off of them, they kind of turn blue.
Okay, that's
So
cool.
yeah, that kind of color.
That's really cool. Where does it live like in an area where no one is, or what's the deal?
It actually lives in the south of China, so there's actually more people in that area,
Oh,
but it's more like in the jungles of that province. So yeah.
yeah. Does it do anything cool, or is it just kind of a cool looking tiger?
This one is just a cool looking tiger. Like in there's been sightings of a bunch of different colors of tigers, and you can
Oh,
actually find pictures of some real ones, like golden tigers with like their stripes are like golden, so they kind of look like
cool.
a golden tabby cat. And then there's like the white tigers that everybody knows, and
Yeah,
some that are almost all black. But
black
this one, what's that?
a black tiger. That's crazy.
Yeah. So basically, with the black tiger, the stripes are just so thick that you can barely see anything else.
So it's like almost black with orange stripes, which is
Yeah.
cool. That's super cool. Like so there's just different it's basically God is selling skins for the characters. So like in a video game you can pay real money to get like different costumes for your characters and stuff. God's just doing that. He's like, "All right, guys." And China has a lot of billionaires, so they're buying it up.
Hmm. Dude, talking about the billionaires, that reminds me of some funny stories here in China. There was like a lot of the billionaires, they'll get these big old dogs, and paint them to look like other animals. So you can go and you'll see like this big old fluffy dog, and they dye its hair white and black so it looks like a panda.
That is amazing.
And one of my favorite stories here is have you ever heard of the Tibetan Mastiff?
Yeah, yeah. Big
So
dogs.
yeah,
They're like a small bear.
yeah, basically. I've seen bears smaller. Well, have I seen bears in the wild? I don't think I have. But I've seen pictures of bears. Well, actually, there was one time I might have seen a bear or a gigantic badger.
How how okay, to be that's a really tiny bear or a really big badger. I don't
Exactly.
if badgers got that big, we would all be screwed. We would just
Yeah.
they would just rip us to shreds. They would take
Dude,
over.
seriously, if it was a honey badger, they could take
Yeah.
over the world.
Yeah. They are monsters. I remember I read White Fang like 200 times when I was a kid, and that was a I guess that wasn't a badger, that was a weasel. Weasels scare me too. But I feel like they might have fought a badger at one point in that book, and it was or Call of the Wild, and it was terrifying. It just scared like badgers. They're legit the Wolverine of the real world, other than Wolverines actually, which
Yeah,
are almost
dude, yeah, badgers are pretty crazy. Like I've seen a video of this badger, this honey badger in Africa, and it was bit by a cobra, and
uh
it kind of fell over, and for like 5 minutes it was just laying comatose. Then it just got up and walked away.
It was like if you play dead, the cobra will leave. There's that me or bears.
Uh, I don't know. Anyway, about the
I,
bear badger. I was walking at night in Palmer Park back in Colorado,
uh-huh.
and I heard this thing behind me, and I was like, huh, I wonder what that is. And I was heading back to the car because I was just climbing the cliffs at night, which
Yeah.
maybe isn't the most advisable thing to do, but whatever.
Well, yeah. That's how we
Anyway,
that's how
yeah, that's how we roll.
that's how we roll.
So I was climbing down the cliffs and I started hearing this thing, and I was like, what is that? And I just got this really, you know how you get those vibes where you're like, dude, something's following me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Prickles on the back of your neck and the whole deal.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm being stalked by something. So it kind of freaked me out a little bit. And so I started more quickly picking my way down. It was a moonlit night, so I could see decently clearly.
Yeah.
And I started making my way down, and every once in a while I check back, and I would still have that feeling of like there's something behind me. And
Hmm.
then as I was about to get to the car on one of the last small cliffs, I
Yeah.
look,
The ones that we always climb.
and yeah, yeah, on that last small cliff, it was maybe 5, 6 feet high.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I look, and below me, this giant blob of dark fur just walks right under me, and it was shaped kind of like I don't know how it was shaped exactly. Like kind of like one of those, what's it called? The thing you put your feet on when you're
Ottoman?
resting on the sofa?
An ottoman.
An ottoman. Yeah, it was basically like a furry moving ottoman.
Weird.
And I
It's a
think
raccoon.
badgers are
It's a
that
big
shape,
raccoon.
but it would have come up to my knees. So it might
Wow.
have been like a really fat baby bear that had been following me that night.
Could it have been a really big raccoon?
Uh That's a good possibility, but
Because
it
raccoons are
didn't
also
have the
kind of
tail
flat and
like the
fat.
of the raccoon.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
couldn't see a tail at all. Anyway, yeah,
So it's
I don't know
the
how that
the
relates to the blue
badger.
tiger,
Colorado.
but
All right. What's number four? Number four, cryptid or oopart?
um, I don't have these in order, so
Number four,
I
weird
think
phenomena.
I think I'll just go with the way I wrote it. I didn't choose the order; I just wrote these down
Sure.
in a random order. So the next one I'll go with is the yeren.
Okay.
So in Chinese, yeren means wild man.
Nice.
I'm guessing you can guess what that is. What? Yeah.
Is it some sort of venomous snake, perhaps, like or an ancient computer?
Actually, yes.
Oh, wow.
No, just kidding. I'm gonna. Oh, wait 1 second. Sorry, I have a cold, so I had to mute it for my loud coughing.
Fair enough.
Anyway.
So the Yeren, the wild man.
Is basically the Chinese Bigfoot.
Okay, so
So
it's not a human,
it's not what?
not human.
Depends on who you ask. There's actually one sighting in a forest in Hubei province, and they said in the sighting they said they saw the Yeren crying, and no other primates do that, so only humans can cry. So some people think it might be like a wild species of human or something like that.
Like an aboriginal.
Yeah, like that, or like a tribe of people with like that disease that makes you really hairy.
Huh. Well, I mean, you remember the running people in Mexico, where they were like somewhat legendary because no one had ever, yeah, people had seen them, but then they immediately ran. So no one had ever like touched or gotten near one ever. So maybe it's like that.
I actually don't remember that. Can you tell me
Oh,
more?
so it's a legit group of people. So they came into they had a really bad drought or famine. I forget which. I think it was a drought like 7 or 8 years ago. And so they came into human civilization. But what would happen is they lived in these near these canyons in Mexico, and there's just like hundreds of miles of canyons. And these people would they were barefoot, but they would run 60, 70, 80 miles a day. They were called the
Okay.
running people, the Tarmar people. And every time they were like real elusive. And then anytime someone would see them, they'd just run into the canyon and disappear. And you couldn't chase them because you can't run. You're not running, 80 miles a day or something. Um, but then they eventually came into civilization a few years back. You know Luke, right? Matt's best friend, Luke
Yeah,
Fisher.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Luke actually went down and worked with them for like 3 years. He worked in like kind of because even though they had like there's a really I haven't seen the documentary, but I've heard there's a really cool documentary on Netflix about them. But
Mm,
what the documentary doesn't really tell you about them is that they had a kind of a really messed up civilization. Like the more every time you find humans that haven't met civilization, we have this kind of
yeah.
noble savage myth, but they had you basically had a 100% physical abuse rate for like kids and women and stuff, and they had a 40% sexual abuse rate. Like you had almost a half 50-50 shot of being raped by your parents,
Yeah,
and they had no
that's
word in
sad.
their language for love. Like
Ah,
they didn't
man,
have the
that's sad.
concept of love. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that noble savage thing. I'm like, it's they're usually called savages for a reason.
well, the noble
Um,
savage thing is an
great
incredibly
people,
attractive
but
myth. It's
yeah,
it's an
yeah,
incredibly attractive myth because that's what movies have showed us, and it seems cool. It's just every single time you look at you find a tribe that hasn't gotten reached of civilization, and they're going to have a minimum of a 15% murder rate, whereas like the whole world as a whole is 1.6%, and that's including war. Like
yeah.
some of them were up to 90% murder rates. Like it's crazy to look at the actual statistics of tribes with no access to culture or to civilization.
Yeah, I heard of like I our family had a friend who did Bible work down in Papua New Guinea, and they had
Yeah.
like a 50% murder rate in the tribe she was in,
Wow.
and yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Did she get murdered?
Oh no, she was
Did
fine.
she have a friend with her?
Did she get what?
Did she have a friend with her?
No, but that was like before they started translating on all
Oh,
that. I think she came in afterwards, but after that, they like the society changed for the better a lot. There was
Real-
like a lot less violence. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, I know. Like with Luke and the Tarmar people, they a lot of them, stopped being alcoholics because it was like basically all of them were alcoholics, and like then they just they did a lot of cool stuff down there. So you should ask him about that sometime. But let's move on to number three, unless you have more to say about the wild man, the Yaren.
Yeah, I have a little bit more just
Sure.
because it's kind of interesting because one of the most famous sightings, like it's the Xinhua news agency, which is like the main official state news agency. They
Okay.
actually have like 400 sightings or more, and just
Wow.
in the last couple decades from like the 70s.
Okay, so so it's a legit thing. Like it's probably not like unless there's just like a group of kids who go around in gorilla costumes or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's like a giant ape, but it's definitely a legit thing. One of the most interesting sightings I was reading about was there was this group, and it was actually six communist leader officials, like during the 70s.
Yeah.
Like six of the officials were driving their car through the forest.
Uh,
It's called Shenongje Forest, and they were driving, and they stopped because they saw this like giant ape creature by the side of the
weird,
road, and,
weird.
and this was like six official, like high official. But for me, I think I give credence to some of the Yeren accounts a little bit more because, like here in Qinghai is essentially old Tibet,
Yeah,
and
it was the kind
it's
of the like the edge of Tibet, like the border cities of Tibet and China.
yeah, basically Qinghai used to be the Amdo Kingdom of Tibet. There was three different kingdoms of Tibet,
Uh,
and this was like the northernmost kingdom.
I
Uh,
didn't realize there were
and
Tibets.
yeah, basically there's three main Tibetan peoples, and where I live is the Amdo area, and then there's the Kham area, and then
Uh,
there's the other area where Lhasa is, like actual Tibet. But I
yeah,
always forget those guys' names because I never run into them. Like
let's
they're
call it the Tibetans.
Yeah, I just call them Lhasa Tibetans because I don't remember.
Fair enough.
Anyway, yeah. Speaking
Who
of
did I meet
that,
when I was up there, man? Because which
who did
people did?
you?
Because I hung out with a lot of Tibetans. So which ones would
Uh,
they have?
it was most likely the Amdal and Kam
Okay,
because the Amdal are mostly in the area I'm in, Xining area,
yeah.
and they're the most common people in Qinghai of the Tibetans, and then there's the Kamba people, which are like in the south of Qinghai and
Uh,
in Sichuan province. I have to say, my biggest gripe when I'm in America is people saying Szechuan or Sichuan, like Sichuan, Szechuan. Every time I hear it, I'm like, no, stop. So, for all you listening, it's Sichuan.
Sichuan.
Anyway,
Okay, what is
Sichuan.
number
Yeah.
three weird Chinese thing?
Number three weird Chinese thing. Give me 1 second.
And that would be
All
the
right,
coffee.
sorry. Yeah, that's the loud coughing. The number three is the Tarim Basin Society and the Tarim Basin Mummies.
Taran Basin. Okay, what is that?
So, in the northwest of China, there's this province called Xinjiang, which has been in the news a bit lately, uh, because of because of some bad stuff that's been going down there. It's kind of like the center for terrorism in China, but
Oh,
also the people group who's doing most of the terrorism, they're also being like thrown in prison camps and stuff. So
oh
that's
wow.
not fun. Anyways, that area, uh, it has one of the biggest deserts in the world, like the biggest actual how do you say the? I'm trying to think of the English word. My brain's coming up with the Chinese word right now.
Sahara?
Shashan, the sand dunes.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it has like the second biggest sand dune area in the world or in Asia. I think it's
Okay,
in the world actually.
cool.
Uh anyway, so that place they found these mummies there and they're actually white skinned.
Weird.
So there's like white mummies in China. One of the most interesting is they call her the Lolan Blue. Wase. My English is so bad now. They call her the Lolan Beauty because, like in this mummy, you can still see her features, and she had like really pretty face. So, and this mummy, like she was white skinned with kind of reddish blonde hair,
Reddish
and
blonde hair.
yeah,
Weird.
and they uncovered a bunch of mummies in that area, and some of them have tattoos, like the tattoos where you get the ash and like called like the scarification tattoos.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Uh,
weird.
yeah. The interesting thing though is you can still see a couple like light skinned Chinese to this day.
Huh.
I've
Like,
actually been.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying I've actually been mistaken for Chinese on a couple of occasions because of that. Because my Chinese isn't great, but I speak it okay, and I have a little bit of a northwestern dialect when I speak it. So a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've had three people asking me if I was Chinese, and I think they all thought I was from that area.
So is it from what I understand, 98% of China is Han Chinese? Is
A little less than that, but essentially, yeah.
so most people are Han Chinese, so is it like a subgroup within the Han, or is it a completely different subracial group?
Usually the
Racial
ones
sub
who look
essentially.
more European, they're usually a different minority.
Okay.
Like the most famous one is the Uyghurs, the one that lives in Xinjiang, and they're the ones that are having all the trouble right now.
Yeah.
Uh, they're the most famous, but there's a lot of other people groups like the Tartars, the Kazakhs.
The
The
Kazakhs I've
Kazakhs
heard
live
of.
in Kazakhstan and China.
Yeah, the Kazakhs, I mean, that's those are like kind of what we think is like traditional Russians almost.
Uh, kind of. They're like they're the quintessential Eurasian.
Yeah.
Like some of my Kazakh friends, because I have quite a few Kazakh friends here, because they have a good exchange program with the university here.
Mhm.
Uh, some of my Kazakh friends, some of them look like completely Chinese. You couldn't tell, and then the others look almost white.
Oh, weird.
So yeah, it's really weird when you like see Kazakhstan because it's such a mixture. But actually, just today, I saw one of my students, and his hair is lighter brown than mine
Hmm. But okay,
naturally.
so these mummies are red hair. Do they know how old they are?
The Lolan Beauty, the first one I was talking about, she's 3,800 years old.
Oh
Just
wow.
to give you some perspective, that's like the same time as Abraham in the Bible.
Yeah, and that's wow. That's real. That's weird that there were like redheads in China. That's
Yeah.
just kind of a
Actually,
confusing thing.
most of the mummies they found were blonde.
Blondes in China.
Yeah,
Huh,
it's actually more common to see redheads in China still. You can even find a little bit of them in Japan too.
really? I have
Yeah, like here it's definitely a darker shade. Like it's really dark, but if the sun shines, you can see a reddish tint.
oh,
So
okay.
that might be some of that ancestry uh coming back
Huh. Well, so
or
basically
shining through.
is the kind of the assumption that the Mongol hordes and the Khans just blasted everyone. And
Um,
because I've heard the statistic, I don't know if it's true, that 15% of everyone in Asia or 15% of everyone in the world is directly descended from Genghis Khan.
I think it's actually 5%.
Oh, okay. Well, it's still, yeah,
But
one out of every
still,
20 people on Earth is a direct descendant. So, like, I mean, that makes kind of makes sense. Like, they just wiped out entire groups of people
yeah.
because
Actually,
they
though,
they were crazy.
this was before the Mongols.
Well, yeah, but I mean, maybe the people group was like, you know, neither waxing nor waning. They were just a
Yeah, yeah.
group, and then they got blasted when the Mongol hordes came through, and they just like
Uh,
eliminated
I
them
don't
and
know.
their descendants.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. One interesting thing though about the Mongols is like it was I can't remember, it might have been a couple hundred years after Genghis Khan died, or
Uh,
as they call him in Mongolia, Chinggis Khan.
Genghis Khan,
Anyway, yeah, Chinggis, Big Brother Chinggis, and
Big
yeah,
Brother Genghis.
it's Big Brother. Anyways, a little while after Genghis Khan died, there was actually a small subdivision of Mongols, and they came and they actually took over Tibet and ruled
Oh,
Tibet. But they didn't know how to rule, so they only had it for like 20 years.
yeah. So it was just like one of his generals or something, or
It was like a different tribe because
okay,
before Genghis took over, basically Mongolia was just a bunch of warring tribes with like different tribal leaders, and he just was like, I'm gonna conquer everybody and make you all one nation under me.
and I mean it did work.
Yep, it worked. So anyway, yeah, the Tarim Basin dudes, they're interesting because most of them, like a lot of people actually think they descended from the Scythians.
Okay,
Like, I don't know if you remember the history lessons about them,
I
but they're like some of the
remember. I mean, I
first
know the
horse
name.
people.
Oh, okay.
And so they were the people like who invented the saddle and stuff like that. And they were kind of like Eurasian, but they were more white.
Huh.
So some people think that the mummies were descended from them because they have the similar tattoos and they're more blonde. But
Yeah.
it's just weird that there was a small kingdom of whiteys in the middle of China.
Small kingdom of blondes in the middle of like,
Yeah.
hi, we're the blondes from China. Uh,
Yeah,
have
it
lots of
makes more sense like where they were because they were in the northwest, but actually in a couple other places they have these legends of the people. If I remember correctly, they called them like the moon people, like
okay.
Yue Minzu, like the moon minority, and they supposedly lived in the mountains, and they were like these really tall white people
Huh.
that they barely ever saw. This was like
They were,
more in central South
they were
China.
night elves. They were moon elves. It's the dream.
Yeah,
Did they have
yeah.
weird ears?
Probably.
Did they have nature
Most
magic?
likely. Just kidding. Uh, I don't know.
I'm gonna assume they did. But let's go to that was number three, I believe, or number four or three. Let's go to
Number three.
all right. Let's go to number two.
All right. I'm gonna cough.
All right, I'm gonna fill time. He's coughing,
Take that
coughing,
cough.
coughing.
Sorry about
Oh,
that.
welcome back. Huh?
Okay. Number three. Or not number three, number two.
Numero
So
dos.
number two and number one I chose because they're in my hometown.
Oh,
Well,
cool.
kind of in my hometown. I should say
Your
my
home
home
state.
province here in China.
Yeah. All right.
So,
What are
and number two is the Baigong pipes.
the bygone pipes?
Baigong,
Bygone.
Gong.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So in here in Qinghai, Qinghai is basically the size of Texas on steroids.
Oh wow. I didn't realize it was so big.
Yeah. So one time I went from the city I live in, Xining, to a city in the south of Qinghai called Yushu, and it was a 12-hour drive all
12 hour
inside.
drive
All in
inside the same state. How many provinces are there in I'm just going to call them states. How many provinces are there inside of China?
uh 30 I'm on the spot now. 33 or 36. I think
Okay.
there's 33 and then three special city provinces. Basically, there's three cities that are so big that
So
they're
like
considered their own provinces, kind of like
and
DC in the
yeah, that's what I was
States.
going to say, like a DC. Okay.
Yeah, Beijing, Shanghai, and I think it's Tianjin.
Is Tianjin that big? I mean, that's weird because you never hear about it. You always hear about Shanghai and Beijing.
Tianjin is like, uh, I think close to 20 million.
Cool. Jeez. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, China has, I think, 20 cities over 10 million.
Man. Yeah, it's
So,
when I was going through there, what I noticed is it was exactly the same as America, but every American city of like 500,000 people had 2.5 million people. It was
yeah.
just like it was like the same exact spacing and like, I drove across just like the equivalent of Kansas and just like drove for 6 hours without seeing and like another person almost like you just that the occasional tiny gas station town. But then every time you got to a city, it was just much bigger than the one than the equivalent in America.
Yeah. Like my girlfriend, she's from a village outside of what they call a small town, but that town has about 400,000 people.
It's a small town. Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me about the pipes.
Okay. So, in Qinghai, there's this area called Delinghe, which is like it's in a Mongolian controlled area
Okay,
because there's so many minorities and they have like special districts where they control that district.
like a
Uh,
reservation almost.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So there's like I live close to a Tibetan district like that, and this one's actually not too far from me, but it's a Mongolian district.
Uh,
And there's this mountain in the middle of that district, and
oh,
it's called Baigong Mountain.
okay,
And inside the mountain, there's these pipes, metallic pipes that run from the
oh,
mountain to a nearby lake.
like metal.
Yeah, like metal pipes that run from inside a mountain. That's I think it's like over 100 yards away from the lake
Weird.
into the lake. And nobody, they're supposed to be like the scientists dated them, and apparently they were like hundreds of thousands of years old, like way before people
Weird.
could do that. And they're also in the middle of a mountain, like
So
in the
what
roots of the mountain, if you will.
is there a cave or is it just going nowhere? What's the deal?
Uh, they found the first ones inside a cave in the mountain. Yeah.
But there are more just going nowhere?
Um, I'm not exactly clear because up until just a little while ago, it was restricted up until a couple years ago. So, like, the information is a little bit spotty on it.
Okay. So
But
I
yeah,
mean, there was just like a society that had plumbing just chilling.
yes and no. So, like, the thing was, the pipes were different sizes, like some 16 inches across,
Uh-huh.
others the size of a needle.
Hmm.
And so, what they actually found that most people, most scientists think is the answer for the pipes is most of the scientists think that it was actually tree roots that petrified, but instead of petrifying into stone, petrified into metal.
I've never even heard of that. Like, how
Yeah,
would that
it's
even
really
be
weird.
huh? That I that's that seems slightly sketchy. Like trees don't become metal. I have lived around trees my whole life and never once seen one become metal. I was thinking like
Uh,
they were like
I was
some of them
gonna
were
make a terrible joke about like somebody making it into a guitar, and then it totally becomes metal. Anyway,
yeah, but you'd still have to have metal for the strings. So even then, your analogy doesn't hold up. Trees are not
yeah.
metal. Trees are not metal. Mm,
Anyway,
Like,
people aren't still. Some people don't believe that,
huh?
especially because in Tibet, like nearby in Tibet, there's some really weird mystery plates that have like apparently tell a story of an ancient alien civilization. But that's a whole nother mystery for another time.
Wait, why are we not going into that? That seems what's
Uh,
the awesome.
yeah, because it's a teaser for next time. And I haven't
Ah,
studied enough, so I don't remember everything off the top of my head.
fair enough. Fair enough. I did put you on the spot for this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what's your number one?
The number one is China's lake monsters.
China's lake, like, is it like Nessie?
Yeah. So a couple of lakes in China actually have their own Nessies.
Huh.
And the
Are,
reason why I chose this one is because the most famous lake, well, not the most famous lake, but one of the most famous lakes in China is in my province in Qinghai. It's called Qinghai Lake.
yeah.
And if you've heard of bird flu, yeah, that's where it came from.
Oh, a true claim to fame.
Yeah. But seriously, though, Qinghai Lake is amazing. It's gigantic. It's the biggest saltwater lake in China and the biggest lake in China. It's
Like,
like a,
is it like
uh,
oceany?
is it what?
Oceany? Like it's the size of an ocean?
Not quite that big, but basically, like, take two of the Great Salt Lakes in America, two or three of those, and put them together.
Wow. So it's like multiple of the Great Lakes in Michigan.
No, it's not that big. It's like one of the smaller Great. It's like the smallest Great Lake, but it's still really
Oh,
big.
okay. Well, so that's weird. So China doesn't have any really big lakes.
Yeah, not like any super gigantic lakes. This would be like the size of two of the Great Salt Lake in Utah, like the size
Okay,
of two of those put together.
but is it the same type of being? So from what people know as Loch Ness monster?
Uh, yes and no. So I have a couple lake monsters to talk about. This one is similar to Nessie, but the other
Uh,
one isn't. So the one in Qinghai Lake, apparently it's supposed to be kind of long-necked and scaly, so kind of like the Nessie sighting.
yeah.
Uh, but it's supposed to have iridescent scales.
Oh,
So
weird.
like kind of like a rainbow trout where it shines like a rainbow in the light.
Does it have a horn? Because I'm going to assume that this is going to be a huge marketing phenomenon. Like a shiny glitter Loch Ness is like if it was also a unicorn, it'd be perfect for every 12-year-old girl in the world.
Sorry, I'm gonna cough again. Wait a second.
This is the coughing song. Michael can't sing along because he's coughing his
Okay.
lungs right out. All right, welcome back.
Yep, coughing my lungs out. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah,
Coughing
this
into
one
my
I've
hands,
seen one
coughing
picture
my
of it.
lungs. Say again.
Oh, I said this one I've seen one picture of it, but I'm almost certain it was faked.
Oh, okay.
But in the picture it had horns, but it was like the Chinese dragon horns.
Okay. So it's not like Loch Ness where every picture looks more or less like a plesiosaur.
Um, yes and no. This one, I would say it's more plesiosauric, if you will, because it has like the descriptions are all like this long neck that sticks out of the water, but
Uh-huh.
the difference is it's supposed to have scales, so more snake-like.
Yeah, I like the iridescent scale thing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, Qinghai has some other weird animals. I'll tell you about one or two of them quick before going back
Okay.
to the lake monster. Like, you wouldn't expect it because we live so high in the mountains. Like, where I live is one of the lower areas and it's 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
Uh, but we actually have snakes and snakes that'll live in the mountain streams.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. And one of the weirder ones we have here, besides the cool ones like the snow leopard and the palace cat, we
Yes.
actually have giant salamanders,
Whoa, like how big?
like 3 feet long.
3 feet long salamanders? I want one so badly. That's my new pet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ride it. I'm gonna ride it to work every day. Like,
I kind
I,
of imagine them just like I kind of imagine I'm just walking through the grasslands in like Upper Qinghai, and then all of a sudden I come to the stream, and then I look and there's this giant salamander, and I'll just like wrangle it or something.
dude, I imagine they're probably dangerous. You should do the research. But like when we were kids, you remember the salamanders we had, the tiger and fire
Yes,
salamanders? Those are the best. I love they're so squishy and like just holding them in your hand is hilarious. You're
yeah.
just like
You can't
happy
hold this
because you
one
have a
in your
squishy
hand.
salamander. Huh?
I said you can't hold this one in your hand.
Michael, body pillow.
That's true. Yeah, these dudes are like 3 feet long and like a weird reddish brownish color.
I
Pretty interesting.
seriously want to use one as my pillow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, dude, it would be weird because it'd be alive and kind of wet, but it would
And
be pretty
because
rad still.
amphibians are not known for their intelligence. But maybe it's just a
Yeah,
really good natured dude. Like, or I could find
probably.
one and train it. Okay, you
How
have
to
to see
train
if
a salamander.
you have to see, yeah, how to train. Exactly. Except instead of breathing fire, it breathes bad breath. It
Hmm.
breathes like I don't know what does it eat? Fish breath. Um, you have to see if you can buy them and how much they are, and if you can like go to a pet store and just like pet one.
I think you can buy the Japanese variety, but like this one here in China is like really endangered because it
Uh,
only like a couple streams here in Qinghai,
okay. I mean, it
like a
makes
couple
sense.
streams in like one or two other provinces.
It's hard to beat a
But
3 foot owl.
there's two or three other places you can find them in Japan, and I think like Burma or something, some other Asian country
Yeah.
that I don't remember.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah,
So lake monster.
the other lake monster I think is interesting because it has a ton of sightings.
Okay.
So back to Xinjiang again. In Xinjiang, that's the province where they found the mummies.
Yeah.
Uh, there's this lake, and it's called Kanas Lake,
Hmm.
and there's been a ton of sightings of a monster there, but this one isn't like your typical Nessie sighting. It's like a
Yeah.
giant 40, 50 foot long fish.
Weird.
And there's like sightings of schools of them.
Do they eat things? Are they terrifying? Are they like
Um,
will
I
they
mean,
will they eat your
I
boat
imagine it'd be terrifying if you're on a lake and you see a 50-foot long giant red fish floating under you.
and like 30 of them?
Yeah.
Do they
So,
look like goldfish?
do they look what?
Like goldfish.
Um, apparently they look kind of reddish. So I imagine more like a salmon or something. Actually, one of the most popular theories for what they are is like a breed of giant salmon. Because
Mhm.
there's like some salmon that can get to be 4 or 5 feet long, and they
Yeah.
think it might be like a freak genetic breed of that gets even bigger.
I I so wish that that lake was attached to a big river, and then you're just like in this creek, you're just like splashing around, and then suddenly a 50 foot fish just goes jumping up a waterfall. That sounds amazing and hilarious.
Dude, I would be there with my spear. I'd have so much meat.
Like if you could kill it, like I think a 50-foot salmon would take you out, man.
I don't know. I think I could kill it.
You'd have to have a crossbow. Like you don't want to be attached to something that can, a 50-foot salmon that can like jump up waterfalls.
I'll punch it in the face.
Fair
Probably
enough.
didn't do much, but
It has iridescent scales for defense. Actually, that's the other one.
yep. Sorry, coughing fit again. Give me a second.
All right. Coughing, covering up the coughing, covering up the coughing. This is the coughing song. If you string all three coughing songs together, it doesn't sound actually any better because I made them all up on the spot. So,
Giant.
okay, hey, what's up, man? What's up, man?
Hey, sorry about that. Sorry, got this interview
No.
right to like the peak of a cold.
Yeah.
So
I got sick last week, so I understand. I had to cancel some podcasts.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. Back to the Qinghai Lake one. Just because an interesting tidbit is actually there was a llama who saw one once. So that's like the most famous thing.
Sorry, I got excited. I was like, wait, there's a talking llama? That's the bigger story.
Yeah, no. That would be a big story. But yeah, in a much more boring way, llamas are like the priests of Tibetan Buddhism.
Are they considered like very honest people?
Yes, but a lot of them aren't.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have some friends who are like Buddhist monks and stuff, and they definitely do a lot of non-Buddhist monkey things.
When I was in the monasteries, I was in the second and third holiest temples in Buddhism, or at least the Tibetan branch of Buddhism. And like the monks had iPhones in 2006 and they drove Audis, and like it was basically a monk. The American equivalent of what a monk was is a trust fund kid who was working at some startup because that's the cool and popular thing to do. Like they were the cool kid. They were like the cool trust fund kids. It was weird. I mean, not all of them, but that was like compared to the normal people, they were way richer, and they were like, I don't know.
Those were probably more like the llamas then.
Okay, well, I just know that they were dressed like
basically the high priests.
They were occasionally going. I mean, there were hundreds of them, and they would go into the courtyard and all om together.
Oh yeah. Well, then those probably were monks. Yeah.
They were. I mean, they looked dressed like monks, and also they told me they were monks, so I assume they were.
Yeah, they probably were. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, with Tibetan Buddhism, it's really interesting, and the history of Tibet is interesting because a lot of like the Free Tibet stuff, what they say is true. Like, there's a lot of terrible things China did.
Yeah.
But at the flip side, before China came in, Tibet was a terrible place. So
everything I've heard, I mean, when
and stuff was rampant, things like that.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy in Tibet, and he when I was there, and he said that you would never let any Tibetan person babysit your kid because in Tibet it was like it was normal to like have sex with a kid, like it was not normal, but like normal enough that you just wouldn't even let someone babysit your kid because there was you just knew that there was, if you did that, if you let Tibetans babysit your kid enough, eventually they'd get molested. I mean, it's not like a racist thing. Like I love Tibetan people. They were the coolest people I've ever met. But like that's just Tibet had a messed up culture.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, I have a lot of Tibetan friends, and they're some of the nicest people in the world.
Oh yeah, they're the nicest people in the world.
Yeah.
Old Tibetan
Yeah.
culture was freaking weird. And like going up into Tibet, it was like it's really weird because the men don't do anything, women have to do everything. So the men just sit outside playing dominoes and like eating and drinking and smoking and just hang out all day, every day, and don't work. And the women just work all the time because, in their belief system, to my understanding, being a woman is a lesser reincarnation than being a man.
I don't know a whole lot about that. That was probably more the nomadic culture, because a lot of things have changed in just like
Yeah.
the 10 years or so since you've been here.
Yeah. So
Uh,
when I was there, I was in, I'm talking about Shaha and then
okay.
the temple near Xining and then the temple in Shaha. I forget what the names of the temples are
Yeah.
now.
I don't remember Ashaha because I haven't been there, but the one near Xining is Tarsa.
Tarsu. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, Tarsa. That's an interesting place. You can buy wolf skins there,
Cool. Did you buy one?
actually. No. But one of the funny things is one of my Tibetan friends, he was out in the grasslands because he was from a family of nomads.
Yeah.
He was out during his break for the university, and he found this like dead dog, and then he found the three pups by it, and
Uh-huh.
so he just took them in and brought them to his dorm without thinking. And then a day or two later, he found out they were wolf pups, and so he had three wild wolf pups in his dorm room in the university. And then I just see this email like, what am I supposed to do with these? Is there like a sanctuary or something?
Hey, what do you do when you accidentally own wolves? Like, they ate my roommate, so I feel like I need to, someone should do something.
He could probably give them to the one of the monks. I know there's a monk. It might be Shaha, but they had like pet bears and stuff. So,
Cool,
but
cool.
actually, they're pretty
Okay, they
scared
have
of bears in
giant.
Tibetan culture
Oh, really?
because, like in the southwest of Qinghai, there was like this area, and there was a man-eating bear, and he would go
Oh,
in and eat people. So yeah, that's
yeah.
fun.
And he ate the salamanders. Jerk of a bear.
Yeah, and the giant fish. The
Yeah.
cool thing about the Canas Lake monster, though,
Hmm.
is there's actually a lot of sightings of it, and it's probably like one of the most cited monsters. Definitely one of the most cited monsters in China, and one of the most cited lake monsters in the world.
Yeah. Well, because it sounds like it's just inornately large fish. It's just a giant freaking fish.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
that one actually you can go on YouTube and find some videos of it.
cool. Dude, I know all of this stuff is cryptids and whatnot, but I'm legit most excited about the giant salamanders. That just sounds amazing.
No, dude, because they're real and because they're salamanders.
So,
Salamanders are awesome.
all right, guys. So thank you for listening. And the big takeaway from this episode is salamanders are awesome. So that's the name of
Amen.
the episode. Salamanders are awesome. Did you have anything else, Mikey?
嗯，现在我不知道.
No.
Not really.
再见.
再见. Talk to you later.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. I just wanted to take a moment and ask you guys if you would like us, comment on us, comment for us, comment through us if you wish. Subscribe, leave us a good review on iTunes, follow us, retweet, double click the picture for a little heart thing. Make a listicle about the 7 times we reminded you of cute cats. Give us a thumbs up like an emperor of old deciding who lives and who dies. Give us a rating of 95 in Red Wine Lovers Weekly. Right swipe us on Tinder, Friendster us on Friendster, and add us to your top 8 friends on MySpace. Thank you. I just want to thank you so much for doing all those things for us and for listening. Definitely for listening.